Welcome, class. So, today we're tackling something you've probably stared at a million times. That giant, sometimes intimidating grid of letters and numbers on the classroom wall. We are going to transform it into a brilliant, perfectly organized map of the universe's building blocks. I am so excited to guide you through this explainer because by the time we're finished, you won't just see a chart, you will see the absolute genius of chemical organization. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We'll kick things off with the absolute chaos of early chemical discoveries, then look at Mendeleev's genius blueprint, navigate the modern table, break down metals, nonmetals, and metalloids, meet the chemical families, and finally, look at some really weird natural states and quarks. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Chemical Chaos and Early Discoveries. Let's step back in time. Picture this. You're a scientist back in the 1700s or 1800s. For centuries, humanity only knew about a handful of elements, right? Things like gold, silver, and iron. But suddenly, it's a total free-for-all. Chemists are discovering new elements left and right. It was a chaotic era of intense scientific puzzle solving. Just look at this timeline of early organization attempts. Antoine Lavoisier tried sorting the known elements into just 4 broad groups in 1789. Then, in 1829, Johann Wolfgang Döbereiner noticed these cool little triads, groups of 3 elements acting suspiciously similar, like lithium, sodium, and potassium. Oh, and my absolute favorite part. Thanks to Robert Bunsen, the Bunsen burner guy, and his work with spectroscopy, scientists literally discovered helium by staring at the sun in 1868. They found it in space before it was ever found here on Earth. Wild, right?
That brings us to Section 2, Mendeleev's brilliant blueprint. So the list of elements is growing fast, and scientists desperately need a system. Around 1869 and 1870, a Russian chemist named Dimitri Mendeleev and a German chemist named Lothar Meyer independently recognized a repeating or periodic relationship among elements when you arrange them by increasing atomic mass. But here's where Mendeleev became an absolute legend. Meyer basically just organized what was there. Mendeleev, though, he had a massive eureka moment. He realized his puzzle was incomplete, so he boldly left blank spaces in his chart. He actually predicted the existence and the exact properties of elements that hadn't even been discovered yet. And when elements like gallium and germanium were finally found and perfectly matched his predictions, boom, his blueprint changed science forever.
But here's the catch. Grouping elements strictly by atomic mass, it actually wasn't perfect. There were a few really annoying inconsistencies. Which brings up a huge question. What was the missing piece of the puzzle that required us to update this blueprint in the 20th century?
Well, we find that answer in Section 3, Navigating the Modern Table. The missing piece, it turns out, was protons. By the 20th century, scientists figured out that the true organizing principle wasn't atomic mass at all. It was atomic number, literally, the number of protons in an atom's nucleus. This quote right here is the foundational rulebook for our modern map, the periodic law. It states that the properties of the elements are periodic functions of their atomic numbers. Basically, as atomic numbers go up sequentially, chemical properties predictably repeat. Simple, but incredibly profound.
Okay, so how do we actually read this map? First, let's look at the vertical columns, which we call groups. There are 18 of them. Think of a group like a really tall apartment building, where every single resident in that vertical line shares specific behavioral and physical traits. They react to things in very similar ways. It's almost like they share the same chemical DNA, which is exactly why we also call these groups families.
Then, crossing the map, we have the horizontal rows, called periods. There are 7 periods on the main table. If the groups are those tall apartment buildings, the periods are the horizontal cross streets organizing our entire city grid of elements. As you walk down the street from left to right, the atomic number simply increases, one step at a time.
Moving right along to Section 4, Metals, Nonmetals, and Metalloids.
Now that we have the grid down, let's explore the 3 massive geographical regions of our map. The vast majority of elements are metals, and they share some highly recognizable everyday traits. They're shiny, they're malleable, meaning you can hammer them into thin sheets without them shattering. They are ductile, so you can draw them out into wires. And, absolutely crucial for our modern world, they are fantastic conductors of both heat and electricity.
But let's jump over to the far right side of the map. Here we find the nonmetals, and they are pretty much the exact opposite. They look really dull, and they are terrible conductors. But what's super fascinating is the border between the 2 regions. Right in the middle, we have the metalloids. These guys are moderate conductors. They possess this really cool mix of both metal and nonmetal properties, making them the ultimate in-between materials.
Section 5. Meet the chemical families. Let's zoom in on a few specific groups to see how those shared traits actually play out.
Notice how perfectly organized these neighborhoods are. Over in the first apartment building on the far left, Group 1, we have the alkali metals. They predictably form compounds with hydrogen in a 1-to-1 ratio. Right next door, in Group 2, the alkaline earth metals form 1-to-2 compounds with hydrogen. Now jump all the way across town to the right side. Group 17 houses the halogens, which are intensely reactive nonmetals. And right next to them, Group 18, the noble gases. These are those completely unbothered, totally inert gases that basically refuse to react with anybody else.
I do want to point out one major exception, though: hydrogen. While most elements stick firmly to their family traits, hydrogen is a total lone wolf. It actually shares properties with both the alkali metals in Group 1 and the halogens in Group 17. Because of this wild dual personality, you'll sometimes see it placed at the top of both groups, or even just floating up there all by itself.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, natural states and quirks. Because, let's be honest, elements don't always behave as cleanly as they look on paper.
Let's look at how we actually find these things in nature. Take the noble gases. They happily exist as single, independent atoms. But many other nonmetals absolutely refuse to exist alone. They clump together into multi-atomic molecules. Oxygen and nitrogen, for example, naturally occur as the paired gases O2 and N2. Sulfur actually clumps together into a solid 8-atom ring, S8. And bromine is incredibly unique. It naturally occurs as a 2-atom liquid, Br2.
Speaking of liquids, let's look at the metals for a second. Almost every single metal on the periodic table occurs naturally as a solid chunk of matter. But then there's mercury, symbol Hg. It is the one bizarre exception to the rule. It's a transition metal that exists entirely in a liquid state at room temperature. It just totally breaks the mold.
All right, one last quirk before we go. If you look really closely at the bottom of the table, down in those inner transition metals like the actinides, you'll notice a hidden detail. Some of the atomic masses are written inside square brackets. So what does that mean? Well, it points to a rather explosive secret.
Those square brackets represent elements that are highly unstable and radioactive. Think uranium, polonium, or technetium. Because their isotopes vary wildly and are constantly breaking down, chemists literally cannot lock down an exact average atomic weight for them. It's just moving too much. So the number you see in the brackets, that just indicates the approximate mass of their most stable form.
We've covered a ton of ground today, transforming what looks like a chaotic grid into a truly beautiful logical map of our universe. But remember, science is never really finished. So as you study this incredible map of matter, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. If Mendeleev could predict elements nobody had ever seen, have we actually found all the puzzle pieces today? Or is there a whole new row of the periodic table just waiting to be discovered in a lab somewhere tomorrow? Keep exploring, keep asking questions,